Mm-hmm.
And it's so twisted because of the way he's justifying it, and I think that justification is part of what makes him evil. Even the Joker in the Dark Knight finds twisted ways to even justify his actions, and their actions of chaos.
Mm-hmm. Justification.
But he says things like he acts like society needs to see these kinds of things happen. He needs to push these sorts of buttons. It just needs to happen. And obviously he's psychotic, but I think justification can be a really scary thing.
That's what makes it the most frightening, because then it hits home with us. But I do think that at the end of the day we have a sense of what is evil and what is not.
Okay, sure.
And I think there is a blending line. Like, for example, we wouldn't go out there and do what Rorschach and the Punisher do, because we somewhere know that we shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
Because we know that we're not the judge, jury, and executioner that those guys have deemed themselves to be. Who gives them the authority? Now, you can create a fictional world where there is a higher authority that gives them that, fine.
Okay, right.
But that notwithstanding, if we're talking about the human experience, not the documentary that came out, if we're talking about the human experience, then we can look at a guy like Ozymandias, like Lex Luthor, and say, those guys are evil. We can look at a guy like Punisher and Rorschach and say, those guys are evil.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can look at characters who are black and white and say, this guy's wearing a white hat. He's obviously good.
Sure.
Superman, we know he's good. We know there's not a drop of evil in this one-dimensional character's body.
Well, and that's what's really interesting too is that we have these absolute concepts of good and evil, and even if you look at this, not that I like to get real far into religion or anything, but these are concepts that are very much rooted very often in religion. So I think it's almost unavoidable to talk about. Biblically, what is evil? Biblically, evil is the absence of good. Mm-hmm. And that, by extension, of course, is the absence of God, or rather, good being the extension of God, right? Good and God are synonymous. So the absence, biblically in the Bible, the idea is that you have evil because you don't have God, and so God equals good, and the devil, Satan, hell, equals bad because Satan rejected God. And so he is evil. Those are absolutes. What's in the middle?
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is that God kills people. God would send plagues on I suppose the adversary. He let the adversary hurt Job.
Well, sure, yeah, and we can talk about that all that. And I mean, I don't even want to get real deep into biblical stuff, but I just mean that classically, the idea of evil is that evil is the absence of good, and good is also the absence of evil.
So tacking on to the idea of this classic idea of good and evil, I think it even goes into the idea of just a logical idea of what can be achieved within the realm of good and evil. I mean, for example, Rorschach, if he was just an average guy, forget Rorschach for a second. We just have an average dude. And there's somebody who's killed somebody in front of him. Say he has the opportunity to kill a mass murderer. Would he kill this guy because would something fall down on his head? Would there be ramifications? See, I think in a realm of logic, we'll work on the idea that this is good for us to do because it would benefit us in some way. This is bad for us to do because it would hinder us in some way.
I think in a lot of ways that's already kind of the society we live in. Mm-hmm. We make a lot of decisions based on what the outcome will be. People are taught everywhere to, and not that this is a bad thing, to think of the ramifications of your actions, and very often it's the ramifications to yourself as much as it is to anyone else, and that's and that becomes a lot more about logic than it does about morality. You know what I mean? Practice safe sex. Why? Because you don't want a kid yet, or you don't want to get a disease of some kind, right?
Hypersurfalifilase.
Is that about morality, or is that about being smart?
Yeah.
Don't kill a person because it's wrong. Well, yes, that, and I don't want to go to jail. Mm-hmm. Our whole society is built on the idea of you don't do bad things because of what it might do to you.
The funny thing is that if you turn that and look in Ozymandias' way, maybe he doesn't really care what happens to himself at this point.
Oh, I think that's true.
So therefore, he is operating solely on logic, and he says, "What I'm doing is going to help humanity, and damn the consequences."
Yeah, but it's still a twisted morality. I mean, there still is a morality there also. I don't think it's ever as simple as logic versus morality. I think sometimes logic for people will trump a morality, and then obviously this is a really complicated topic which we can't completely go into now because it's basic psychology and basic philosophy, right? Mm-hmm. But different moralities are based on different things. You have moralities that are based on religion, and then you have moralities that are based on other things, and those things are going to be different. And I think potentially logic itself can become a certain kind of morality, and doesn't even necessarily have to be just based on only yourself, right? There's the old greatest happiness principle, which is a logical idea of you do the thing that helps out the most people, that is the best for the most people involved. So that, if you have 100 people in a situation and 60 people will benefit and 40 people will not, you do that thing as opposed to the other
one
thing
that would benefit 40%.
40% instead of 60, yeah.
The utilitarianism, right?
Exactly. Uh-huh. And that's a logic-based idea also.
I think that logic, really, when it boils right down to it, anybody who's purely logical can think selfishly and still come out with some sort of, with something akin to morality.
Perhaps, yeah.
If what you're doing is bettering society, that means you are bettering the environment in which you live. So therefore, you can come out on top and say, all right, I am classically a good person, but I'm doing this for my reasons. So,
well, it's the old principle of everybody wins, right? Mm-hmm. Well, what's the harm in helping myself if it also helps everyone else?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't always work. You know what I mean? Because then of course the danger becomes if you're putting yourself first and just assuming that it helps other people, you're always going to run into the place where it's helping you and it's helping no one else, but you logic it out to a point where it feels like it is.
And that's the thing, is that at that point it's not so much logic as it is self-serving.
Yeah,
because if you really use logic, you can tell that you're hurting other people.
In the Geeks Not Nerds that we did. The real plaid rabbit, who happens to be my stepdad, left a comment and said, and I like this. I thought I'd bring it up. He made the comment that it kind of boils down to the whole question of evil with villains. It boils down to the difference between a bad person, air quotes, and a person who does bad things.
Mm-hmm. I suppose there could be a compulsion. Maybe a serial killer who feels really bad about it, but he just keeps doing it because he feels compelled to.
Yeah.
So,
and I think the clinical word for that is insanity.
Yeah. But is he really a bad guy? He doesn't want to do it. He just does.
Well, and I know... Okay, I can think of people in my life that I've known that I don't like. You know what I mean? That do things that I think are bad things, or things that I think are sometimes morally objectionable, and yet I know that there's good in them. You know what I mean? I know that they're not necessarily bad people, but they make a lot of bad choices, right? And so I don't know, once again, not everything is black and white, and I think more often than not, villains do bad things, but I think that fewer of them maybe are actually completely 100% evil than we might expect. You know what I mean? Or I think it's possible to even flip between being evil and not being evil. You know what I mean? I was evil, but I have found a way to repent, or I found a way. You know what I mean? Or That's not the word I want. You know, I've redeemed myself in some way.
Yeah.
I was this way for a long time and was okay with it, and something got through to me. Something broke through. You know what I mean? Catwoman is a good example of this. Not that Catwoman was really a murderer all that often.
I don't recall anything that she killed anybody.
I mean, Catwoman more often was just more often, you know, was just a burglar. But
I suppose if you include Max Schreck.
Yeah, but as far, I mean, more like comic book Catwoman,
yeah.
Sure. You've got someone who does bad things, but is not a bad person. She's on the fence.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I don't think anybody would ever argue that Catwoman was, at least in some places, not a villain. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, Catwoman was a villain, but was she an evil villain? I'd say not. I'd say
Catwoman is predominantly self-serving, I think.
Yeah.
She really pretty much only cares about herself. Until it becomes cats, and then she loves those things.
Yeah, although I think that there are places where she goes too far and then realizes, whoa, this is bad, and so she's got to have some feelings for people also.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Vince, we're all out of time, but we'll do rants next time because we're out of time. But this is one of those topics that I think we could do several hours on. You know what I mean? So
spinning our wheels and never coming to a conclusion.
Well, and I don't think there is a conclusion on this, right?
Yeah.
The conclusion is. In my mind, is yes and no. You know what I mean? Do villains? Okay, the first question: do villains have to be evil? No, some of them are evil, and some of them do bad or sometimes evil things. And secondly, can we completely define evil? It depends on the context, and it depends on certain types of morality.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on who you are. And I mean, you know, most people believe in a, you know, or a lot of people believe in an idea of an absolute morality, but then it depends on what that's based in.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a religious person, then you believe that your morality is probably the absolute reality. If you're not, then you might believe in something a little bit more relative. So it's a very complicated question, and I don't think you can ever be finished.
But it's always fun to ask.
Sure. Yeah. And to attempt to answer.
Indeed.
Well, thanks a lot for listening to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. We'll see you next time. I'm Captain Logan.
And I am Vince.